Hi class, this is Mrs. Wendt, and this is Cell Notes Part 4, and it's actually the second video on eukaryotic cells. So make sure you're watching the videos in order, that if you have not watched the first part of eukaryotic cells, which is Cell Notes Part 3, make sure you go back and do that first. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we went through these plant parts and talked about what they do, and then we drew them on this picture. So we just need to continue where we left off in the last video. Okay, so our next cell part we have down here is something called Golgi bodies. And in some textbooks, this might be called the Golgi complex, or just Golgi for short. It's all the same thing. And this is what kind of looks like some flat pancakes. And it packages things into little bubbles for, not same, oh my goodness, safe, S-A-F-E. So packages things into bubbles for safe transport and storage. So you might think about this as like the UPS store, right? It's someplace you might take maybe an antique vase and it's really fragile, and you take it in and they wrap it up in bubble wrap and they put it in a box and tape it up real good, put a label on it, and then that vase gets shipped off to your grandma. Okay, that is what the Golgi bodies do. And what they look like is kind of like some thin stacks of pancakes. And then you can see the little packages, the little bubbles coming off the side. So let's draw this and see what this looks like. So I'm going to choose maybe an orange here. And our Golgi bodies here, I'm going to kind of draw little flat pancakes. And sometimes they're the same size, sometimes they're not. But then very often you're going to see little bubbles coming off the side. G-O-L-G-I. Bodies. Okay, and cells may have more than one of them. Maybe I'll put another one down here. Oops, got a little messy there, but that's okay. Okay, so all these cell parts, except for the nucleus, usually a cell is going to have more than one. And you can add as many as your drawing will hold. All right, so those are Golgi bodies. So a lot of these might take one of these little ribosomes here, and the ribosome makes a protein. The protein gets packaged up in the Golgi body, and then maybe it leaves this cell and goes to a different part of the plant or animal to do some building, to make a new leaf or a new skin cell or a new piece of hair. All right, so that is what the Golgi bodies do. Okay, so they package things into safe little bubbles for transport and storage. Maybe it's something we don't need right away. Okay, but it can stay safe in that little bubble until it is needed. Okay, now our next little thing also looks like a little bubble, and it's called a lysosome. And if you think about the beginning of this word, lyso, kind of like Lysol, the cleaning stuff for your house. And it's used to kill germs, and what it actually does is Lysol will break apart the cell wall and membranes of some bacteria. And so that's pretty cool. And what a lysosome does is actually breaks apart cell membranes of other things too. It has a bunch of enzymes inside that are going to help break things apart. So it's kind of like a water balloon or a little bag of enzymes. And lysosomes are used to recycle and get rid of trash. So anything the cell doesn't need, if it's an old cell part, or if it's a piece of food that we don't need, or something like that, the lysosome is going to get rid of. Okay, now plant cells, lots of books will say plant cells don't have lysosomes. All right, but some newer research says, hey, they do have lysosomes. So we'll stick one in here. Oops, we don't want to use that same color. Let me back up here. We want a different color here. Let's use kind of this light green here. And we'll just stick one down here. And it just looks like a circle, like a little water balloon. Lysosome. And I'll put a little star here. And maybe we'll say not always in plant cells. Okay, so as we learn new things in science, when I went through high school, we said, oh, plants don't have lysosomes. But now it kind of looks like maybe they do. And because it looks like just a little circle, it's kind of hard to tell what they are under microscopes. Okay, so when you learn new things, you adjust and you take your new info and you put it in with your old info. Okay, now the next two guys are super important. All right, mitochondria. Okay, lots of textbooks will call this the powerhouse. Power meaning energy, like a power plant. And the mitochondria is the part of your body that breaks down sugar. So all the sugars in the food that you eat, whether it's a really big carbohydrate or a really small piece of glucose, it's going to break those into little pieces and turn it into something called ATP. And we're going to learn a lot more about ATP next week. But ATP is like the little batteries that have energy for your body to work. Okay, so your body has to change the energy in sugar over to ATP so you can move your arm and make your heart beat and take a breath. Okay, so mitochondria are super important. And if you have, some cells have a lot of mitochondria, like your muscles, your arm muscles and leg muscles and your heart are full of these guys because they use so much energy to move all the time. Your bone cells won't have as many because your bones don't move. But your bone cells still need some mitochondria to be able to process food and do things like that. All right, now I'm going to show you the next one too, because the next one kind of goes hand in hand. And then we'll draw these guys kind of side by side. A chloroplast is green. So that's why we haven't used the color green in our picture yet, because they were saving green for this guy. And chloroplasts are what makes the sugar. Okay, so chloroplast is going to make sugar. Mitochondria breaks down sugar. Now chloroplasts are only in plants. You do not look green as a human. You can't do photosynthesis, which means make sugar using light. Photo means light. So chloroplasts are only done by plants. But mitochondria is going to be plants and animals and fungus. Okay, so only plants can make the sugar, but plants, animals, and fungus all use the sugar. Now, other types of cells like bacteria, they also use sugar, but they don't have a mitochondria. They do something a little different that I'll show you next week. All right, so both of these guys are extremely important, but just realize chloroplasts are only in plants. Mitochondria is going to be in all eukaryotic cells. So to draw this, I am going to use, let's see, I need like a hot pink maybe for our mitochondria. So mitochondria have kind of a specific looking shape. They're going to be like a jelly bean shape, and inside they have a membrane that goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that gives them a lot of surface area. to do chemical reactions. Okay, and these guys, like I said, cells will have some, they might have more if the cell is really active and needs lots of energy to do stuff. Mitochondria. So that's kind of squished, but I'll spell it here for you. M-I-T-O, mito, and then chondria, C-H-O-N-D-R-I-A. It's kind of squished on my screen, but that's what that guy is. So it always has this shape, the jelly bean, with a back and forth membrane. So there's lots of surface area, lots of places where you can do chemical reactions and push chemicals from one side to the other. All right, now I'm going to use green for my chloroplasts. And chloroplasts are about the same size. They're also a jelly bean shape. And inside they have little stacks of coins, maybe you would call it. And if this was a leaf cell, there would be a lot of them in a plant. If this was in the roots, roots will not have that many because they don't get sunshine, but there would be a couple. Maybe you've gotten a potato before, a fresh potato that kind of seemed a little green, where they had lots of mitochondria. That potato was actually growing close to the surface, and that's why it was a little more green than maybe his neighbors. Okay, so all of these green guys, chloroplast, C-H-L-O-R-O, chloro, and then plast, P-L-A-S-T, chloroplast. So chloroplasts make the sugar. Mitochondria change the sugar into a form of energy that cells can use. So plants have to have them both. Plants will make the sugar and then they use the sugar. As animals, we just eat the sugar. So we kind of steal that from the plant, and then we take that plant sugar and use it for energy. Okay, plants will make fruit like apples and berries and store lots of sugar to help get them through the winter and to help support the seeds that are inside for growing. Okay, so mitochondria and chloroplasts, two of the most important things that you are drawing today. All right, and they happen to be almost the very last thing we need to draw is the cytoplasm. And that's the fluid inside. Now, we had this in our bacteria cells too. And your cell might be really full, and you might be like, I don't think I want to draw cytoplasm around all this other stuff I drew. So you kind of have to decide how you want to do this inside your picture. What I'm going to do on the computer here is I'm going to change to a crayon and do just kind of a light crayon background. And the cytoplasm is going to be all inside the cell membrane. So all of this area. Whoops, let me get my pen turned on again here. I think it's running low on battery. So cytoplasm is where all of these other organelles are floating. Okay, so it's not inside the water vacuole, it's not inside the organelles, but it's all this space around it, right? It's inside the cell membrane, so it's not part of the cell wall. Okay, so all of this is our cytoplasm. Not really beautiful, but it is what it is. Whoops, let's change that back to a pen. Come on, pen. Cyto, C-Y-T-O. Sorry, guys. Looks like it's not gonna play ball here. I'll try my finger. C-Y-T-O-P-L-A-S-M. Cytoplasm. Very messy, but gets the job done. All right. So this is our completed plant cell. Now, our goal for you is that if we give you a picture of a plant cell, you could label most of the parts, just like we have labels on all the parts here. And also, you could tell us what the job of those parts are. Okay, so ribosomes build proteins. Golgi bodies, they're the packaging centers where they put things in these little bubbles to send them out to be safe. The cell wall kind of gives the plant some protection and support, helps it stand up. Cell membrane layer lets good things in, pushes waste out, keeps water inside. Mitochondria takes sugar and changes it to energy we can use, called ATP. Chloroplast makes sugar by photosynthesis, right? Lysosome is our trash collector, gets rid of garbage. Water vacuole just stores a whole bunch of water. Okay, the nucleus here is the control center. It has strands of DNA inside. It has a dark nucleolus to make ribosomes, and it's surrounded by a membrane that can push things in and out. We also have ER, like our transportation system. Sometimes it's rough with little ribosomes on it to transport proteins. Sometimes it's smooth, and these usually transport lipids. Okay, so we want you to know all the parts and their jobs. And so a lot of what you're going to do with worksheets and stuff, the Quizlet flashcards, Kahoot is just going to be drill, drill, drill. What is this part? What is the job? What is the part? What is the job? And if you're wondering why you care, well, most of the rest of the biology class goes into more detail about these guys, how these guys work together to build your body, how these guys work together to make more cells, and all the things that make you, you. So that's why we want to know all the parts. For those of you going into college, your college professor will assume that you learned this in high school and will probably cover it in about 5 minutes in one class period and then move on and expect you to remember it. So this is a great thing to try to learn and stick ahead in your brain, because you're going to be using it a lot in the rest of our biology class this year. But also for those of you in college, you will definitely see this in your future. All right, so study, study, study. The animal cells, I'm not going to do a whole nother animal cell part for you, but just realize that animal cells, you guys have kind of learned, are the same as plant cells, but they don't have chloroplasts or cell walls. And the water vacuole is going to be a lot smaller in animal cells, okay? So you may want to take a moment and jot this down. Traditionally in class, we would spend a day drawing an animal cell, but due to time, we are going to skip that this time around, okay? But we do want you to know the differences between plant and animal cells. If you see a picture of one, can you identify it as being different, as something else? Okay, so animal cell parts, they have all the plant parts, except animals do not have a chloroplast, they do not have a cell wall, and their water vacuoles are much smaller. Okay, so what do you need to do right now? Please go to Schoology and take the cell notes quiz number 4, and realize that on these quizzes, they're all questions that might show up on your chapter test, which will happen later on in a few days. So if you did get some questions wrong, you can always go back and relook at them, go over your answers as part of your studying. You should be able to see the correct answers, I think, after you take the quizzes. So make sure you're reviewing those guys and getting ready for a test at a later date. Okay, so this ends our cell notes video number 4. Have a great day, guys. We will see you later.